why McDonald's has discontinued its AI drive-thrus, the Marine Corps' digital transformation initiative, and managing multinational digital transformations. Those are just three of the topics we're going to cover here today in episode 181 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This podcast features technology agnostic and international discussions related to digital strategy, software selection, implementation, change management, business process optimization, and everything else you need to know to make your digital transformation project successful. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberling.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling, here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. This is the podcast that covers everything related to digital transformations, including the people, process, technology, strategy sides of transformation. As I mentioned, joining as our co-host is Darian Chwialkowski. Darian, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this episode.
Yeah, I'm excited too. We've got a lot of good stuff we're going to cover here today. Again, new episodes of the show every Wednesday. Go to transformationgroundcontrol.com to find those. You can also listen to the past episodes at that same website. Great topics we're going to get to here today. We're going to open up with some social media questions. We're going to talk about some newsworthy topics in the digital transformation space, two in particular. One is how McDonald's is discontinuing its artificial intelligence in its drive-thrus. And we're also going to talk about the Marine Corps' digital transformation initiative within the U.S. government. And later in the show, we are going to have Aaron Patterson and Dean Sam, who are two of our vice presidents managing different parts of the world for Third Stage Consulting. So they're part of the leadership team that is managing both EMEA, the EMEA region, and the Asia Pacific regions. And they're going to be on the show with me to talk about lessons from multinational digital transformation. So we're going to talk about all the things you need to know if your digital transformation involves multiple countries and a rollout throughout the world. That's going to be a great discussion that you'll want to stick around for. And then later in the show, we're going to continue and we're going to have Aaron on in some more detail. And we're going to talk about some growth plans that we have here at Third Stage Consulting within the EMEA region. We're going to talk about some of his background. We're going to get to know Aaron a little bit too later in the show. We're going to play you a clip of him chatting more about his role here at Third Stage and also what we're doing within the EMEA region with our clients and our team there. So before we get to those guests, though, what kind of social media questions have you received here lately, Darian?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn recently, Eric, you published a post about Iron Man as an analogy for digital transformation. So we had quite a few comments and questions on that post. So I wanted to bring them to the podcast today. The first one is, love the Iron Man analogy. Just curious though, would Pepper Potts be the one doing the actual planning for this digital transformation, or Jarvis getting a major upgrade? Asking for a friend and all the employees that don't want to get caught in the crossfire of your innovations. Great post.
Yeah, it's a great comment. And actually, I was surprised at how far people took the analogy. They took it a lot further than I took it as far as bringing in specific characters and nuances of the movie franchise that I had forgotten about or just didn't recall. Funny story, or not a funny story, depending on how you look at it. I am not actually an Iron Man / superhero fan, so I actually don't really, I do watch them with my kids, but I'm not a huge fan of those kind of movies. So I don't follow the plot and the story and the characters as much as some of the people in the thread. So they really challenged my knowledge of Iron Man trivia. But I would say, that was an interesting comment on that thread about some of the characters and Jarvis within and the Jarvis AI within the Iron Man comparison. But I think the interesting comment there is that, he hits two things. One is the planning and the technology. Planning is such an important part of a transformation, which is something that Iron Man is all about. And so I think that's another great part of the analogy or metaphor, whatever it is. I don't know if it's an analogy or a metaphor, but perhaps some of the English experts out there can tell me which it is, but that's a great comparison there with that, and then obviously the AI piece of it too becoming more relevant here today. So yeah, I think the AI and the planning pieces of it are both relevant in any sort of digital transformation, which further strengthens the comparison between Iron Man and digital transformations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this next one, hopefully, it's not going to test your knowledge on characters, but it is also about Iron Man and the Marvel theme. They say, I like the Iron Man and Marvel theme, and in a digital transformation or business transformation, Iron Man would have to plan for AI and robotic process automation as given for augmenting implementations, automating workflows, cybersecurity considerations, read threats, and let's face it, scaring users. I think we can all anticipate that AI will displace jobs and that time is coming soon. Iron Man not only created Ultron, but that is as about AI as it gets. He seemed shocked when it turned on him and how powerful it became. For such a smart guy, Tony Stark was almost utterly destroyed by AI. Bottom line, get out in front of AI and RPA headed into business/digital transformation. What are your thoughts on this, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of the concept of creative destruction. Where there's certain threats in the world, and I forgot who coined the phrase creative destruction. I think it was Clay Christensen who wrote the book Innovator's Dilemma. I think it was him that coined the concept of of creative destruction. But the whole concept with creative destruction is you want to embrace the fact that that the disruption is happening, and you can either fight it and hope it goes away, or you can embrace it and be part of the disruption. And so I've always taken that same philosophy, even just in building Third Stage. There's certain things we do as a company that is really embracing trends that many might view as a threat. For example, partnering with competitors and leveraging technology to automate a lot of what we do as consultants. We've been doing that for years now, where we actually are embracing technologies that, I don't want to say it commoditizes some of the consulting services we provide, but it automates some of what we're doing. So in theory, I should be opposed to that because it's generating less revenue for us because it takes us less time, less billable hours to do some of the work. But the way we view it is if we do that, we add that much more value to a client. They're just going to hire us to do other stuff instead. And that has proven to be the case. So I think that's the case here too, is if you with AI and robotics and any emerging technology, insert emerging technology trend here, this comment will apply, is you have to just embrace it and accept the fact that it's probably going to disrupt things. It might result in less jobs, but if I'd say it's a lot less to result in lost jobs if you're embracing it, especially if you're a person that you feel threatened by AI potentially. If you're embracing AI and you're finding ways to use AI to make you better as a person, as a performer, then I think it's actually going to work the opposite. It's actually going to make you more valuable to the organization and make it less likely that your job goes away. If you resist it and fight it and ignore it, you're actually going to be more at risk of being eliminated, from something like AI or any other emerging tech. So I think you do have to embrace it and figure out how it can coexist, and not to say it's going to be perfect and it's not going to disrupt jobs, but I think it's less likely to if you embrace it and figure out how to integrate it with the work you're already doing.
Yeah, I think I agree where you just need to embrace AI. I think it's here to stay. Is there right now something you see in the future that we should maybe avoid? And I mean, this comment talked about how powerful AI became and it almost turned on him. Do you think there is like a line that crosses over where you shouldn't cross maybe with AI for companies right now?
Yeah, I do. I think the bigger risk, I think, with AI is not, I think the even bigger risk than potential job displacement or job loss is going to be the deep fake stuff. The fact that you can now create alternate realities or alternate perceived realities, and you can confuse people, using this technology. For example, the software we use that we're using right now to record this podcast, they recently released a feature where you can take this podcast interview, this discussion we're having right now, and it'll take AI will mimic your voice or my voice, and I can enter in there what I want either of our voices to say. So and I tried it for myself. I tried to put in, I forgot what I put. I just put in something innocuous using my voice, and it sounded exactly like me. I mean, I couldn't really tell the difference other than the fact that it didn't have the inflections, and the way I talk was a little bit different. so I could tell, but the tone and the sound of my voice was identical. It was kind of creepy. So it's just and I know that we've talked about it in this podcast, for example, the principal at a school, I think in the United States, that was fired because someone created a deep fake AI phone call or something, or a voicemail of the principal saying something inappropriate that got him fired. And then he got rehired once they realized it wasn't real. So I think there's going to be more and more of that. And I think that's actually the big disruption to society. That's going to be even bigger. And you're going to have more, I think you'll have more cybersecurity issues with people phishing scams, sounding like someone important or someone official that's not really them, and getting you to do things that are, have financial or legal consequences. So I think that's the bigger disruption than job loss, is just the impact on society and the fact that we're going to have trouble differentiating between reality and what's AI generated.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is definitely interesting. I didn't know that you did that about the podcast. That's super interesting that you can do that now. And I think a good point to that is you can maybe recognize that it's not your voice because you know how you talk, but to somebody that doesn't know you in person and doesn't really know you personally, I don't think they can really tell the difference between a voice that sounds like you and a voice that is actually you, or it might be very hard for them to tell the difference. So that's definitely something that people should look out for maybe in the future, or just be aware of at least.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think if anything, there's going to probably be a backlash of some sort where people are craving more real human interaction, because AI and because of the ambiguity around what's real and what's not. You can't replicate the in-person human contact, or, FaceTiming someone and having a conversation on video. That's different than just receiving a voicemail or watching a video of someone sort of static. So I think people are just going to crave more real human interaction as a result of this.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point too, I know I saw something the other day that was, if you go to a social media app, we know that TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they're all strongly implementing AI suggestions now. But when you go in there and let's say you're searching for a shoe or something, you look up Nike shoe, now it will display an AI picture instead of shopping pictures of products you can actually purchase. So I feel like, yes, people will crave more of the human interaction, but also I think they'll just almost get annoyed of AI in certain situations as well, being like, no, I want to actually find the product and be helpful, but it's not letting me do that because it's just generating images. So I think all those kinks still need to be kind of worked out with it as well, but it's just some interesting perspectives on AI.
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, we're going to get into why McDonald's is discontinuing their AI-powered drive-thru voice ordering system in our newsworthy articles later this episode.
Yeah, we're going to shift gears and we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk about McDonald's and how it's discontinued its use of AI in its drive-thrus. We'll also talk about the U.S. Marine Corps and its digital transformation initiative, some lessons from that. And then we'll have our conversation, our sort of center stone conversation after that with Aaron Patterson and Dean Sam from the Third Stage Consulting team. They're going to be representing different parts of the world that they represent within Third Stage Consulting. And they're going to be here with me chatting about lessons from multinational digital transformations and ERP implementations. So be sure to stick around for that. And then later in the show, after Aaron and Dean are on, we're going to play a video clip from Aaron, the same Aaron that's going to be interviewing with me here in a few minutes. And we're going to talk about digital transformations in the EMEA region in particular. So be sure to stick around for that. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. If you're using SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft Dynamics, or any other sort of legacy system, you might be feeling pressure to migrate to a more modern version of those legacy systems. However, there's another option out there. You can look at third-party support as a way to extend your life cycle and save money on your legacy systems while you figure out your own IT roadmap that fits your schedule. So there's a company out there called Spinnaker Support that supports, among others, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft customers. And in general, Spinnaker customers are going to save 60% on their annual support maintenance. They're going to get extended lifecycle support. So these are support levels that help organizations take control of their IT roadmap
and give them an option that extends beyond the sunset period for what SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and other software vendors are offering. So that's one of the things that's the beauty is not only you're saving money, but it also gives you an opportunity to work past and have a roadmap that works past the timeline that the software vendors have given. In addition, you're going to deal with or leverage expertise from consultants and support professionals that have over 20 years of experience on average. You're going to get world-class security. You're going to get proactive support. So it's actually not just fixing stuff that breaks, but also ensuring that you get more value out of your system. And Spinnaker also provides global availability. So it's really important that you check out this as an option. There's third-party support providers like Spinnaker that can give you an option that takes some of that pressure off to have to feel like you have to upgrade your system right now. So to check out this concept and to learn more, I encourage you to read a white paper that we've provided for each of the listeners of this show. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to Third-Party Maintenance and Support. So there's a link in the description field of this podcast, so be sure to check that out. You can download that. You can learn more about what third-party support is, learn more about the advantages and what some of the common frequently asked questions are, and really just address any questions you might have. So be sure to check it out. It's from Spinnaker Support. You can download that paper for free, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
I'm gonna leave it all out there and dry up. I'm gonna leave it all out there.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And you can also watch past episodes of this show by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. This podcast is everything related to digital transformation. It's sponsored by Third Stage Consulting Group, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions. So thank you for being here today. So you've got a couple of newsworthy topics for us here today, Darian. What do you have in store for us?
Yeah, so this first one is about how McDonald's is discontinuing their AI-powered drive-through voice ordering system, which has currently been tested since 2021 in collaboration with IBM. This decision follows a mixed results from different trials, which aim to determine if automated voice ordering could streamline operations and speed up service. Issues with the order accuracy and customer dissatisfaction contributed to the decision, so McDonald's plans to explore other potential partners or develop an in-house solution for future voice ordering technology instead. So I'm not saying they're completely getting rid of it forever. I think they're just kind of switching courses and maybe switching exactly what they're doing. Eric, considering that this McDonald's collaboration with IBM didn't pan out as expected, what should companies look for in a tech partner to ensure successful AI projects?
Well, I think getting a proof of concept or a pilot of what type of technology it is you think you're buying and what kind of capability you think you're getting, could be super helpful. I'm not saying that would have solved all of McDonald's problems, but I suspect there might be technology out there that can do what McDonald's was trying to accomplish. Maybe they just had the wrong partner or the wrong software vendor to provide it. Just from what I've seen and how powerful even ChatGPT, the most recent version of 4.0 of ChatGPT, just seeing how powerful that is and how accurate it is, I have trouble believing that, there's not a technology out there that could do what McDonald's wants as far as the voice recognition and translating the voice recognition into an order. That's not that sophisticated or that complex of a process. Even when you factor in exceptions, like I want my burger with no pickles, it should be easy enough for AI to pick up that I want a burger with cheese, no pickles. So anyway, I think that there's, I'll be curious to see where McDonald's goes with this, but I think, it's an interesting use case of how, you can waste a lot of money on something that's not proven or that's not going to work. So you want to make sure you're pretty deliberate and you don't move too fast, because it's easy to move fast with new technologies like AI. So you want to make sure you're smart and deliberate about it as well.
Speaking of things can be moving a little bit fast, do you think that customers are truly ready for AI-driven experiences in places like fast food drive-thrus, or are there still significant hurdles that just the customers need to overcome and companies need to overcome with that?
That's a good question. If we base it on experience with IVR, the integrated voice response technology that call centers use, when you call a bank or you call to make a reservation somewhere, and it says, speak or say what it is you want to do. If you'd like to make a reservation, say reservation. If you'd like to do this, say that. And it makes you say these things. And, I don't know about you, but half the time I'm on one of those IVR things, I get frustrated and say, can someone just answer the phone and can I just talk to the person? Because it would be so much easier and faster if they would just, take my call and let me talk to them. So, I don't know if that's me being old school and resisting technology that's been around for, 20 plus years now, but I still have that same feeling half the time I'm on those IVR. So I can see if you're at a drive-thru and you want food fast and it screws up your order and you don't have anyone to talk to fix it until you get to the window, I can see why that would be super frustrating. So I think a place like McDonald's, especially, that's based on speed and convenience and all that stuff, is going to have to really dial that in and make sure that it's not perfect, but make sure that it's ready for prime time. Because I can see why people get real frustrated by that. I know I would. I'd be frustrated if I was at a drive-up window and I couldn't talk to someone to fix the order that I just placed that AI somehow messed up.
For sure, it might just make it longer instead of save time, which is ultimately the company's goal, is to save time and money. But you might be losing out on time and money from the frustration. Because I know I have the same experience all the time whenever you get the voice answering system and it's like, oh, just give me somebody to talk to instead of the robot. I can't deal with it. But also, one of the concerns that was very high on the list for McDonald's was the potential concern for privacy issues. How big of a role do you think privacy and data security plays into the adoption of AI technologies into public-facing businesses like McDonald's or any other fast food chains?
Well, I think there's, if it depends on what sort of AI models they're using. If they're using, an open AI technology, it does make you wonder what happens to that information. And, if you're training AI and AI is using your proprietary intellectual property to learn itself, it just creates a sort of gray area with intellectual property and who owns that knowledge and that data and that information. So, I don't know how much individuals will worry about this. They might, maybe they should worry about it as far as sharing personal information or whatever that now is being stored somewhere else, presumably in an open AI model. But I think businesses absolutely should worry about it, because if you're entering, competitive information into an open AI model, the question becomes, is that now public domain information because it's part of an open AI model? So I think there's a lot of unresolved stuff there that probably is going to have to work through the court system for years to come. And, we've had an attorney on here, Marcus Harris, who's been on the show, has been on to talk about intellectual property and how it ties into AI. So that's something you might want to go back and watch too. We had a full interview where we talk about some of the nuances and risks, legal risks of AI.
Yeah, for sure. Well, to kind of switch gears from AI and go more into digital transformation, we're going to go into our next newsworthy topic. This next article is from CIO. This article discusses how Marine Corp's digital transformation initiative, which integrates technologies such as robotic process in automation, 5G, and augmented reality and virtual reality. These advancements are being implemented at the Marine Depot Maintenance Command Center to enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and streamline operations. So this initiative, Eric, with this initiative, I guess, how can robotic process automation be customized for military logistics?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity and low-hanging fruit there for it to automate processes for military organizations, because they're so supply chain intensive and there's so much in the way of logistics as far as moving troops around and equipment and ammunition and things of that nature. That's all, it's a very complex supply chain and a human capital management sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for automation and robotic process automation in there. And I think AI as well. There's a lot of opportunity for AI to optimize some of that supply chain stuff. So I think the more complex the supply chain, which a military supply chain is extremely complex, I think the more complex it is, the more RPA and AI and some other, newer technologies can help.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. One of their other initiatives was implementing 5G. What challenges do you see of deploying a private 5G network in military environments? What challenges do you foresee for them for that?
Well, I mean, there's certainly complexities and costs associated with implementing your own 5G network, but I think in many cases it's appropriate. And many organizations that are operating in rural, remote, far-flung areas would be well served to implement their own, private network to help them take advantage of the cloud and other technologies that you just can't get unless you have network connectivity. So I think yes, there's complexity, there's cost, there's risk, but I can see why the military and other multinational organizations with manufacturing plants out in the middle of nowhere, they might, there's a lot of organizations that will implement their own 5G network so that when they're scanning stuff on the factory floor, pick, packing, and shipping products in the warehouse or distribution center, it's still real time uploading to the cloud, even though they don't have reliable internet connectivity publicly. They've got their own private network. So cost and risk, yes, but there can definitely be an advantage to having your own network like that.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And one of the last things in their initiative was all the cost saving that all of these things can potentially have for them. What are some of the key factors they should look for to achieve significant cost savings throughout their digital transformation?
As far as the Marine Corps themselves, what could they do differently?
Yeah. Like how will this, I guess, or what are some key factors they should look for?
Well, I think the better planning they do up front, and the more they're deliberate about where and how they spend their time and money, that's going to be probably the best thing they can do. So having a deliberate plan and a clear plan, a realistic plan, and then also having the right project governance in place. If you can have the right controls and the governance and the project management and the program management to manage your various vendors, your system integrators, your software vendors, your consultants, all that stuff, you want to have a real strong PMO in place and governance in place. So those are probably the two biggest things I'd suggest to any organization, but in this case, the Marine Corps, those are two things that would probably behoove them to help, help them be more effective in their initiative.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. These were some great newsworthy topics. I found them super interesting this week. Overall, I thought they were really interesting.
Yeah, they are. And that Marine Corps case study really ties into or leads us into our main interview here today, which we're going to get to right after a break. We're going to bring on Aaron Patterson, who's the Executive Vice President of the EMEA region at Third Stage Consulting, and then Dean Sam, who's the Vice President of the Asia Pacific region at Third Stage Consulting. We're going to have this multinational crew here chatting with us about how to manage multinational digital transformations and ERP implementations, and really just understanding some of the nuances and complexities of multinational implementations and what you need to do differently to be successful in those, and some of the things that you should be thinking about if you are going through a multinational transformation. So we're going to have Aaron and Dean on the show here in just a moment. We're going to chat through that. And then later in the show, we'll continue our thread with Aaron, talking about the EMEA region in particular and what some of the growth and digital transformation trends are in that space. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. Be sure to stick around. We'll be right back.
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you will want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So, collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
With 1,000 lies and a good disguise, hit 'em right between the eyes, hit 'em right between the eyes. We knew I'd go away.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name's Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of the show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. And this podcast has everything to do with digital transformations, including the people, process, technology, and strategy sides of transformation. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting. And speaking of Third Stage Consulting, we've got two guests. In addition to Darian and I, we've got two new guests or two more guests that we're going to interview here today to join the show or to join us on the show to talk about managing multinational digital transformations. And we thought for this topic, it would be great to have some of our global team and some of our global leadership team on this discussion. So we've invited two of them, Dean Sam, who is the vice president of Third Stage Consulting in Asia Pacific, and Aaron Patterson is the executive vice president of the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So they not only have experience working in other parts of the world besides where I am, I'm in North America, they're in obviously other parts of the world. They not only have that experience working in other parts of the world, but they also have experience working as part of multinational implementation. So we want to dive into what makes these projects so different and what some of the things are that you need to do to be successful in these initiatives. So with that all being said, Dean and Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, Aaron. Well, just wanted to thank our viewers who are watching or listening us. It's great to have an opportunity just to share our experiences and sort of our know-how in the space of digital transformation. Hopefully, we can clarify certain things, untackle certain mysteries of digital transformation, because in our view, it's not that complicated. But just about myself, I'm based out of Hong Kong. I've been in the digital transformation, ERP implementation, as well as HRM, CRM engagements, and in the consulting field for the last 15 years. I've worked in several different countries, such as Canada, Bangladesh, China, and Hong Kong. And as I'm looking after the APAC region, we also have quite a bit of clients in the Australia and New Zealand region as well. So looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, great having you here today. And then Aaron, you're joining us representing the EMEA region, but tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at Third Stage.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, my background, straight from college, actually, I was involved in large SI projects and some multinational ones. I was actually a software developer for the longest time, and then gradually worked my way through a number of different roles, working on large projects, doing either system integration or consulting throughout my career. And luckily enough, as Eric knows, we actually got to work together on an international project back in the late 1990s, I think it was, or early 2000s, down in South Africa, and we had a lot of fun down there. So always been involved in lots of different projects in lots of different countries, really enjoyed it. And if anybody's actually met me in real life, you know how much I enjoy talking about large projects and how to make them successful and some of the mistakes that we've all gone through. So looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Good to have you both here. And that is an interesting tie here or connection to this topic here today is Aaron and I, had the first project we worked on together was actually in Johannesburg or in South Africa, throughout South Africa, working on a project down there. So it's only fitting that we would have this topic here today. And speaking of South Africa, we have just kind of turning to the audience and where people are joining from today. We have several people that have chimed in on where they're joining from. Alcinda, coincidentally, is joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa on LinkedIn. So thanks for being here again, Alcinda. Dan's joining from Reston, Virginia. Derek from Chicago. Craig from Hereford, UK. Pamela from Connecticut. Sid from New Jersey. Patrick from Ireland. And Kay Trivovel joining from Ghana, West Africa. So we've got people joining from all over the world here today, as we typically do, but even more appropriate and more fitting here today that we'd have people throughout the world to give them the topic here today. So I guess just to start and really just to kind of get into the conversation here, and maybe here I'll start with you, Dean, on this question. But so digital transformations are difficult. I think we can all agree on that. Digital transformations are maybe not complex or don't need to be complicated, like you said, Dean, but they are difficult for a lot of organizations. But what makes multinational implementations even more difficult than a typical, single location implementation or transformation?
Yeah, I think it's just about the scale of the project, right? Number one, if you're going through a digital transformation or system implementation in one location, that's already a program in itself, right? It's not just a project, it's a program. You got to think about different things. You got to not just the technology, but the preparation in the organization, the process reviews, the functional requirements, the data cleansing. That all has to be done internally. And then there's the change management piece. And then you add in the technology and the vendors as well. And then it escalates not the complexity, but the management level that's required to oversee all of those moving parts. So that's for one location. But now we're talking about multinational. Then we have a program in one location. We probably have to have a program for a regional location now. So combining different locations. And then probably we're talking about global. So we probably have to have a global program to put an umbrella on top of that. So we're adding different program management levels, not just project management, but program management levels in order to get through this multinational global implementation project. So it's just the scale and the number of people that needs to be involved is quite incredible. So the team or the client needs to be equipped with solid people all around, and they need to be working on the one same song sheet, and that's what's missing, really, right? You need to have a framework. You need to have a consistent strategy from global to regional and to per location. So it's a lot of work and a lot of preparation is required. And we talk a lot about phase 0 being extremely important. This phase 0 has to be on steroids in order to get that done.
Very, very true. I mean, you've got multiple ways of operating. Typically, you have multiple operating models. You have different org structures. You have different cultures. So it's a lot of moving parts, as you put it, to pull it all together. And we'll come back to some of those. I'm going to pull on some of those threads a little bit more here in a moment. But how about you, Aaron? What would you add to the conversation here as far as what, in your opinion, what makes these multinational projects even more complex and more difficult than a single site implementation?
Yeah, I think Dean covered a lot of the good points around the actual scale and the management of that and how complex that is. I think there's a couple of things that are pretty unique to the multinational in terms of how it might impact. Some of those are cultural differences, for example, right? So you have truly different cultures across nations as opposed to just within a single organization in a single country. And that can, manifest itself in a number of different ways, even just getting a common calendar together, for example, different holidays in different countries, different times, religious holidays where work isn't done, for example. There's a number of different things that have to be taken into consideration that you wouldn't necessarily have to deal with if you were dealing in one country. The other side of that as well is really the the compliance and regulatory reporting, right? You get into a whole different ballgame when all of a sudden you're doing tax returns for 80 countries instead of one, and you're trying to pull financial information in a consistent way when the organizations that are actually in control of licensing you or authorizing you to work in different countries, you have to deal with a lot more complexity, and a lot of times it's very localized as well, right? It's not something that can be laid down from the top and standardized right the way across the organization. So those are probably two of the things that you always run into in terms of multinational that I've found and need to be addressed in a controlled and organized fashion.
Yeah, and you both have alluded to this concept of culture, as far as just the different, not only the geographic cultures, so operating in different countries on its own has different cultures because of the people in those countries, but you also have your own unique cultural differences just within the organization, across locations. So what are some of the, and I'll start with you on this one, Aaron, but what are some of the common cultural and organizational challenges that are faced during transformations that involve multiple countries? Do you have any examples or examples of types of things that are challenging from a cultural perspective on multinational implementations?
I think really there's probably a couple of things. I don't think, there's resistance to change in general. And I think as a multinational organization, you would still tackle that in very, very similar ways in terms of the actual program itself. It's just the complexity once you get down into individual organizations, you're dealing with different issues at different points. I think, there's always a resistance to change with any digital transformation project now. That can vary dramatically, even within a single organization via departments, right? Some people are a lot more digital savvy than others. And then if you take that and look at that from an international perspective, then that can be multiplied tenfold. You might be the first, for example, you might be the first computer system that a team has ever used, right? I mean, that's realistic. I mean, we've been working on some projects in the 90s and 2000s where that was the case, right? I mean, new communication networks were just going in and we were deploying, servers and technology, even that people had never really used before. And I think especially when you get to PCs and desktops, I think now there's a little bit more change where you can push down a lot of the user interaction to mobile phones. A lot of countries do have that, but that's pretty unique, I think. And it all comes down really, I think, communication issues. You just have to be really good in terms of the communication about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, why it benefits people, and really focus on that.
Yeah. How about you, Dean? What would you add to that?
Yeah, just to add on what Aaron was saying about being digital savvy, and that needs to come across the entire multinational entities. And that's a big issue, is the level of digital literacy that all of the users or the power users and the management has across the company. Because if you're implementing a consolidated and integrated system, a common consolidated integrated system across the organization, I mean, everyone needs to have a minimum level of sensitivity and awareness of what information is, right? They need to be sensitive to that. They need to understand the value of having data in front of them and how they can use data to help them better manage their operations, basically, to better plan. So that's one area. It's the being sensitive and having that digital awareness or that information awareness. And then second piece is being to know the best practices, that systems do offer. We've come across manufacturing organizations where they never built a bomb. Right? They didn't know what a bomb bill of material was, for example. So you had to go and taking what Aaron was saying about communication, is you got to understand what they don't know first, and then you work your way backwards to give them the tools or the understanding of what are those simple building blocks, but extremely important building blocks when you set up and configure a system, because you're not going to be using and leveraging the system if the organization doesn't understand some of these best practices, whether it's a bill of materials, whether it's setting up cost centers, for example, right, or a costing bomb, or different planning levels, and so forth. So that needs to come across, and everyone needs to be on the same page.
I'm here with Dean and Aaron from the Third Stage Consulting team from EMEA and the APAC regions. We're talking about lessons from multinational digital transformations and ERP projects. We've got a lot more topics to cover here with them, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control. Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting, and I want to invite you to join our annual tech agnostic conference called Digital Stratosphere. Digital Stratosphere is a conference that features some of the industry's brightest minds, greatest thinkers, and it's a great opportunity to network with peers, other industry people, other CIOs, other project team members that are going through digital transformations or ERP implementations. We've got a great lineup of speakers this year. It's a 3-day event, a lot of great entertainment, networking opportunities. I'll be there as one of the keynote speakers, along with some of my favorite speakers in the industry as well, both within Third Stage Consulting, but also outside the company as well. So I encourage you to check it out and learn more. You can go to stratosphere2024.com to learn more about the event. You can see the agenda, the way it's shaping up, and you can see some of the past testimonials of people that have attended. And the event is October 2nd through the 4th, 2024. It's going to be based in Denver, Colorado, downtown Denver, beautiful downtown Denver in the fall, which is a great time to visit Denver if you haven't been. Again, stratosphere2024.com. Check out the agenda. Check out our early bird pricing for passes. And the other beautiful things, if you can't be here in person in Denver, which we hope you can, but if you can't, you can also join remotely as well. We have virtual passes available as well, so you're able to join from wherever in the world you might want to join from. So stratosphere2024.com, check it out, and I hope to see you there.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And we're here with Aaron and Dean, and we're talking about how to manage multinational digital transformations and ERP implementations. There's a school of thought in the technology space where we don't need to worry about our current state. We just need to worry about our future state and, define our best practices that we're going to use in the future state. But I think what you're both saying is, yes, we need that future state. Don't ignore it, but you also can't ignore the current state, which is this is where we are today. And each location is going to have a different level of maturity, as you guys mentioned, a different skill set, a different culture, and a different way of operating. And this is especially true if you're moving to more of a common standard operating model across the country or across the world. That's going to put even more pressure on understanding the current state of each of these different locations. So those are great points. I want to turn to the audience too. We've had more people chime in on where they're joining from today. I want to say hello to Jay's Reef from Toronto on LinkedIn. Another Craig is also from Johannesburg, South Africa. So their ears must have been ringing, Aaron, when they heard us talking about South Africa. We've a few people from South Africa here. Rana from Dubai, Mecklin from the Third Stage Consulting team in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being here, Mecklin. Darian's joining LinkedIn from Denver. And then Yeshwant is joining from Bangalore. So thank you for everyone chiming in on where you're joining from today. Sandra is joining from Chicago on YouTube. Thanks for being here. Here's a question I want to get to. Or actually, I'm going to pull up a comment and then a question from the audience here. Bear with me. I just lost it. No, where'd it go? All right, I'll come back to that comment I was going to pull up. But here's a question from Dan on YouTube. Dan says, when doing multinational ERP implementations, how important are localizations such as US GAAP and Brazilian tax? And those are two, very specific regulatory localizations. But maybe I'll broaden it a little bit more, not only to talk about regulatory localization, which is, you don't have a whole lot of choices to make there. You either are either complying with the law or you're not. So it's a little bit more maybe easier to answer the question around regulations because you do have to localize from a regulatory perspective. But what about just localization in general? How do you navigate that balance between the organization that wants to centralize, standardize, integrate operations, become one company versus the other extreme, which is we've got different countries operating differently. They know their markets best. They've adapted their, the operations to the local markets, and let's just leave them alone and let them operate independently. I mean, those are two extremes. It's not an either or answer. Obviously, there's a whole continuum of where we might fall on that spectrum. But let's start with you, Dean. How do you navigate that whole decision around, do we standardize and integrate across the globe, or do we let each country operate independently?
Well, you need to have the localization factor there, or else the actual entity will not be able to run its day-to-day business. I think the key thing here is when we talk about standardization and process consistency, those are just as a high-level talking points, right? In order for, let's say, system implementers to get the deal done, and they think everything's going to be nice and rosy at the end of the day when we turn the system on, but it never really happens like that. We need to keep in mind of that localization. And you were mentioning before about the as-is or the current state. That's extremely, extremely important to note that. And we can't just think about what should be the utopical way of doing business, because you have to look at that localized requirements. The key thing here is to identify what are those key data points that needs to be part of the, let's say, the regional planning process, the reporting process, and then next level would be the global reporting or planning piece. So you need to build your processes in order for companies to run their everyday business based on local regulations, but it's identifying those data points in your design so all the information can be rolled up or rolled down to the different entities.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. How about you, Aaron? What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think tying in with what Dean said, one of the key things that I've seen is really it's deciding what you actually want from the project, right? At the very start in the strategic alignment workshops up front, what are the goals? Are you trying to get standardized reporting by country, by department, by whatever? And then really understanding as best you can the balance between pain and process, right? I mean, if you go down and fix the process for a multinational organization outside of purely legal requirements in each one, you will go through a lot of pain getting that system accepted in all of your different areas. Now, if you have a completely custom solution, as Dean kind of indicated, you're not going to meet the goals of the project, right? So it's finding the balance between purely custom and very rigid in the implementation and the processes that are put down, finding the right balance there. And what that really is why are you doing this project, right? I mean, what are the goals of this project and what am I trying to see? If it's process optimization across supply chain, for example, does that vary? Do you have separate KPIs in your different countries versus at the head office? And how does that translate into the actual system that you're going to deploy for the end users? And really, I think, having done a number of these, a lot of it comes down to the individual organizations, right? They have to decide what do I want out of this project? How much pain am I going to go through and bear in order to get the end results? Or how much am I focusing on let's do what's right for each individual department or each individual country, and then we'll deal with a lot of the consolidation of data and cleansing and things at a higher level and be able to pull that out. And so really it's an individual balance, I think, between the companies in terms of the strategic direction and then the local impacts and where in the balance that line gets drawn between those two things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Here's a couple interesting comments. This is the comment I was trying to find earlier that I lost. This is from Sid on LinkedIn. Sid says, great point regarding holidays. In certain Gulf countries, the workday is Sunday through Thursday. And that's just a great example of how you can get misaligned culturally if you're not mindful of the fact that, okay, our core team might be operating Monday through Friday, but we have operations that are in the Gulf region, for example, that are operating Sunday through Thursday. There's different holiday schedules, different, religious observations and holidays and things. So just being mindful of that stuff and understanding that half the time that's half the battle, is just being aware of the differences and trying to accommodate the best you can while you're going through these projects. Because you also have to think, if you're doing a global project, there's already going to be a perception, for better or for worse. There's already going to be a perception that the global team is pushing and forcing changes that local operations may not want. So if you add to the fact that now you don't understand that they work Sunday through Thursday instead of Monday through Friday, or that they have certain holidays that you don't observe, in your country, that lack of understanding just creates a greater divide and a greater perception that you don't understand our local operations. Therefore, I'm going to resist the change that you're trying to force on me, here at the local level.
Yeah. And I think that's really a key point, right? For me, especially when I first started working on these projects, there's a lot of additional ways that you can mess things up. I think that's the thing, right? It's like you can accidentally put your foot in something that's very serious for another culture that you had no knowledge about whatsoever. And I think it's really important for the project team and the project leadership to understand the different variances and the different localities and the different cultures there, and be very respectful of those, especially if, like you say, things are getting pushed down from the head office, or the global team is in the global headquarters as opposed to in some of the local distribution centers, for example.
Yeah. And also, you look at, there's other things too, like certain cultures are just more hierarchical and more authority based versus other cultures and other countries. Like in America, for example, in the US, I mean, we value flat organizational structures and decentralization and flexibility and that sort of thing. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. But you go to other cultures and that's not the priority. And so you can't impose your own values in terms of, well, this works in the US and this is what we value, so we're just going to run the whole project like a US, like a US company. You can't do that in that example if you want to be successful.
Yeah. And even some very simple examples, right? I mean, working on some South American SI projects that I worked on, the culture for the organization that we were working with was they would not physically sign any requirements documents. And this was back in the day before we were using Agile, probably late 90s. And they would not physically sign them, which meant in our process terms, as far as what the SI was authorized moving on to the next phase, you couldn't actually move to the next phase unless the customer signed off on the documents, because you were exposing the company to too much risk. And so, that ended up in a very large negotiation and agreement that as long as we said everything was okay, but nobody had to physically sign the document itself, then we could move on. But it was very different even for the implementation team to be dealing with that kind of thing. And it's just a little thing, but it's very cultural, and some things are very embedded in how organizations operate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question I have for you, Dean. This is from Alcinda on LinkedIn. She always has really good questions. So thank you again for this question, Alcinda. But this is coming back to that readiness concept that you were talking about a little bit earlier, Dean. But should the digital readiness assessments be done per country or centrally? And I think there's a lot to this question, because it's not just about digital readiness assessments. It's about how you make a lot of decisions. Do you do it centrally, or do you make decisions or get involvement and input from the local countries? But in the case of digital readiness assessments, do you do that per country or centrally? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, you have to do it both. I mean, it could start with the central side in order to develop, how the company wants to operate, moving forward with this new implementation, with this new system, and get the requirements, the high-level requirements from the executive team of what they're expecting from that solution, what they're expecting from the different entities, what they're expecting from the different management tiers in the organization, on how they need to process information. But then going back to local side, it's very important to do an assessment of the current state and one of the things that we do at third stage is what we call gap analysis, right? So a gap analysis is understanding what the executive or the global team is looking for, and understanding how the entities are currently operating, and define that gap, and how, and then you can start building out what should be your process reengineering activities in order to align expectations. So it does start with a central vision, I would say, of requirements. It's all about setting up requirements at the end of the day.
Right.
You know, you have high level requirements. They need to be filtered down into actual process and information requirements. And then you have localized requirements. Those also need to be developed and laid out in terms of a process and information flow and organizational flow. So all of those two levels need to combine and make sense. And at the end, you need to have sign off from the central team.
Right. Now, here's sort of building on what you just said, Dean. I'm going to ask you this question, Aaron. This is from Craig on LinkedIn in South Africa. And Craig asks a really good question. And I think a lot of people in this meeting or in this listening to this podcast are probably wondering the same thing. But this is from Craig on LinkedIn. He says, many clients and countries believe that they are unique, but often the same process can be implemented. How do you deal with these situations? That's a big question, Aaron, but I'll start with you to see what your thoughts are.
As simply as possible. I think, you know, a lot of it is just, it really is change in communication, right? And bringing people along. Sometimes if they are actually using the same process, or they can use the same process, you can get them there without the realization that the local organization is actually agreeing with the head office or how things were going to be anyway, right? I think a lot of times it's very important to make sure the local team feels part of the process. And if you as a consultant can see that there's a lot of similarities between the processes for different departments or organizations or countries, then it's in your best interests to help them along the journey so that they feel like they got there themselves. I think if you come in with the approach of just, hey, this is how we're doing things, this is what's going to be good for the company as a whole, you can lose a lot of local talent and local project team members with that approach. So really, you know, being smart and aware of where you're trying to get to, and helping the team get to some place that is right for both them and the overall organization. I don't think there's a nice, easy cookie cutter answer to be able to get people there, but it really is paying attention to the needs and wants of the local teams and trying to get them to a good place that meets the overall project and program objectives.
Yeah,
it's all about perspective, right? You have to give everyone a voice. You don't want to impose a certain way of doing things, but it's about articulating how they're currently doing it and showing it in a similar way, but it's really what they're saying, right? You're saying this, I'm showing it to you right here, and we're just doing a few adjustments here and there in order to validate what the central, you know, group wants. But really, at the end of the day, it's your process, because everything that we're translating, whether it's in a process design, in terms of a flow chart, or it's really their operation. So it's just really translating it in a different way so everyone can understand.
I'm here with Dean and Aaron from the Third Stage Consulting Team from EMEA and the APAC regions. We're talking about lessons from multinational digital transformations and ERP projects. We've got a lot more topics to cover here with them, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company's called Roloff Consulting. And if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space. And she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
Interested in working for a company that truly values your unique skills and experience? Here at Third Stage, we don't hire based on resumes alone. We look at the full candidate, experience, and willingness to provide excellent service for our clients. Within a technology, independent, and agnostic consulting firm, you have the opportunity to learn across industries with a diverse group of clients. Our consultants also have the opportunity to diversify their portfolio and learn across technology systems. If you're interested in joining a high-growth entrepreneurial organization, please reach out to us at work@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And we're here with Aaron and Dean, and we're talking about how to manage multinational digital transformations and ERP implementations. Something you guys are alluding to is that sometimes it's perception. So much of this that we're talking about is perception. If the people perceive that you are forcing or imposing a change on them, especially if it's coming from another country, a lot of times that resistance is greater than if we said, let's forget about the fact that this idea originated in the US or in the UK, and now we're trying to, force Saudi Arabia to adapt the same process. If you sort of depersonalize and say it's not about like the US or the UK or Saudi Arabia, it's about us as a company. This is what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, and here's how this local office is able to do that, and it becomes less personal, I guess you'd say. It's less, you're magnifying less of the cultural difference and focusing more on the commonalities, the objectives of the organization, and what we're trying to get at. So that's an interesting point you guys bring up. Sort of related to this, maybe a little bit more on the technical side of what we were just talking about the localization piece of it, is when you look at systems. This is a question from Rana on LinkedIn. And Rana says, sometimes organizations are using more advanced but disintegrated apps. It presents a great deal to implement an integrated ERP, but with somewhat lesser or complex functionality. How do you cope with these issues? And maybe another way to frame this would be to say, a lot of times the local office may have an app that they've installed just for them that's perfectly aligned with what they want, what they need. And now all of a sudden they're being asked to adapt to a more common global ERP system that may not have all the strength of functionality that they had grown accustomed to in the local market. So how do you find that balance between these disintegrated apps, these localized apps, and the possibility of an integrated solution across? Why don't we start with you, Dean?
Having different systems is not a bad thing, in different systems in different countries, different locations. But the key thing is the governance part of it, on top of it, because we're talking about the topic is about running a digital transformation for multinational companies. So there needs to be a governing party, like a head of technology or head of information that is aware and has inventory of those applications and how are they connected, and what is the information being pushed in or pushed out from these apps, and understanding the key functionalities that reside in these applications, because they do provide value to the organization. Now it's just a question of understanding clearly what these functionalities. So it's about translating the application, just the technology, to functionalities, and how can those functionalities now be embedded in a more, integrated ERP solution. So you need to have that governance piece, and people need, and a governing party needs to be aware of the functionalities that these apps play, and they need to sign off on it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's key, right? I think a lot of whether the apps stay or go really is defined by the overall goals of the project and your data governance, right? And will your applications fit in with the data standards that the new system will do is probably one of the first questions. And if it will, then it's down to, total cost of ownership type values and pros and cons of whether you leave it or whether you don't. But a multinational will probably have very standardized and set processes around that and what it takes to allow an individual application to kind of be there that's company specific versus the national one. But then getting that ERP, if it is decided that it's going to be replaced, then really those are the hard change management problems, right? I mean, especially if applications are loved by their users, it really is a full-time job to ensure that you do bring them along with the change and they are productive and we can get the system successfully deployed, and you want them part of that process to get them to where as close to where they want to be as possible, both from a technology and a change management point of view.
Yeah.
And just going back to a question before about localization or central. So it's all about understanding those apps. What functionalities do they perform? Are they a localized functionality? Well, we sort of need to keep it because it's doing the job. But if it's not a localized functionality, then that we need to look at how that could be embedded into more of the general process of the ERP.
Yeah. And maybe, who knows, maybe that local function, that local app could be something that could be used more widespread even outside of that location. I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of times by understanding the current state, you pick up on these nuggets of strengths and competencies and competitive advantages that local markets have developed. And a lot of times organizations ignore that and say, well, we're just going to put it in a common operating model without considering the fact that, well, maybe the way they're doing it there locally is better, or maybe that's something we could apply in other parts of the world as well. So finding that balance is certainly tricky. A couple other comments here from the audience. This is from Eduardo. Dean, you might like this one just because you're so focused on phase 0 and planning. But Eduardo shares with us a quote. I don't know if the quote's from him or from someone else, but it's a good quote. And the quote is, "Preparing the soil is necessary before seeding change. Otherwise, no change will ever happen." It's a great quote. I'm going to give you credit for that, Eduardo, unless you tell me there's someone else that came up with that. But I like that quote. That's a good one. Here's a comment from Dan on YouTube. Great rephrasing of the questions and answers. Like the comment, balance between pain and process. So Dan's that point resonated there with Dan. And here's a question for you, Aaron. This is from Craig on YouTube. We haven't touched on this yet, but when we look at things related to data retention, et cetera, I want to get to this point here. And Craig's question is, what are the considerations around data retention, data boundaries, storage, et cetera? And presumably we're talking about on a global project. How is that different than how you might address data retention, data boundaries, storage, et cetera, on a domestic project?
I think it's a great question. There's a lot of implications around that. Data does need to be treated differently. Even if you look at now some of the requirements, if you're working in the EU compared to the US, right, you run across data retention and data access issues that are legal issues that have to be dealt with. So it's very important to understand what the requirements are at various different locations and for various different countries, because they can have a huge impact on your strategies of how you actually deal with things in a large ERP. I think, I've seen, looking at it a few different ways, you really need a centralized data governance framework. I mean, we've talked about governance, and data is a key part of that, right? And getting your data standardized as much as possible across the organization. I think that's another key. And then where it isn't standardized, or where information does have to kind of exchange between systems or countries, just making sure that you have data integration and interop kind of designed and very consciously implemented, so that you don't run into issues later on in the project. And then really, I think probably the final, outside of the overall quality and having a plan for how you're going to manage the quality, is getting back to the life cycle requirements and making sure that, yes, if you do have retention policies that are different, that they are implemented and can be implemented on a local basis. But you really just, again, it's another facet of the complexity of multinational organizations where you will be dealing with different requirements. There is an inability to standardize data retention requirements across a whole organization that's operating in, I don't know, 50 or 100 countries. I don't believe that's possible, just based on all of the requirements I've seen in my past. So you just have to recognize where you will allow customization or localization. And again, it goes back to making conscious decisions. What you really don't want in a program is for things to accidentally happen, because there's a 50-50 chance that accident might be good or bad, right? And sometimes the odds are a little bit different than that. And really, the whole point of doing a large digital transformation, you really want to get the benefits of that. And in order to get the benefits, you really need to plan and actively manage and govern the project and the end results so that you do see your ROI.
Yeah, makes sense. How about you, Dean? Anything you'd add to that as far as the data storage, security, some of these more technical infrastructure components of multinational deployments?
Well, I'll just piggyback on what Aaron is saying about the planning of the data. I think the rollout strategy that the multinational company set up, because such a big company, such a big project or big program, you can't have a big bang. You'll have different phases, multiple phases in different locations. So the first thing is in your phases, you need to identify what are the data requirements required in each phase, and making sure that there's a closed loop management process set up in the data that you're going to use. So you're going to get the benefits from every phase of every implementation. For example, if we're just implementing sales, it's not going to give you anything, because that's all you're not linking other departments, other processes together with an end-to-end view. So it's really setting up your rollout strategy, identifying your phases, identifying what are the key data sets required in that phase and in each phase, and how does that data set flow throughout the process you want to implement, and then you'll get the value from every step of your implementation.
Yeah. Yep. It's well said and good advice. One thing before I get to my next question here, I want to share one thing with the audience. If you like this topic of multinational implementations, which I assume you might be interested in it if you're here watching it here today, but let's just assume you are interested in this topic. I'm going to flash a QR code on the screen in front of you for those of you watching it on video here today. And it's a registration link to our upcoming conference. It's a digital transformation conference that we're hosting in October in downtown Denver, Colorado. So you can join in person or you can join remotely, virtually with a virtual pass. But we're doing a conference. The three of us will be there to talk about this and other topics related to digital transformation. So if you are interested in learning more and diving deeper with speakers from Third Stage Consulting, as well as other industry experts, we're going to have a couple dozen speakers, great entertainment. It's a 3-day event, downtown Denver. If you're able to join in person or you can join remotely, scan the QR code in front of you and you can learn more about the agenda and the pricing and all that stuff. So we'd love to see you there. So I'm going to leave that QR code up for the rest of the conversation here today while I get to some of these other questions as we're going here. So a question I have here for you guys is that we haven't really gotten to yet is in a case study. And I'll start with you, Dean. Maybe you could give us a case study here. Could you give us an example of a successful multinational digital transformation, and maybe what was it, or what were the things that made it successful in your experience?
Right. So I'll give you the example of, let's say, a manufacturing organizations with over 30 manufacturing sites across, let's say, a dozen different countries. I think the key thing, number one, is you need to have a centralized technology implementation team. Number one, that's overseeing the whole global rollout, and ensuring the right best practices, the right consistency, the right standardization, and the right data requirements are being rolled out in each of the locations. So you need to set that team up very importantly. The next piece is, let's say in the manufacturing organization, we're talking about manufacturing, or we're talking about planning, right? So there's a lot of things to plan. You have financial planning, you have material planning, you have manufacturing planning, you have distribution planning. All those planning cycles, where are they going to sit in the organization? Are you going to so you because that's why you want to integrate an integrated system, because you want to integrate and centralize certain planning processes. Instead of having 3 different sites doing their own planning, it will be centralized versus one regional, let's say, planning office, and they would be giving the plans, the material plans, the manufacturing plans, the distribution plans to perform the execution. So it's important to set up your centralized planning offices as well, not just implementing the technology, because they're the ones who are going to be receiving information, the data information of what's happening on the floor, and then they're going to replan for the next planning schedule, and also they're going to give the new plan or the next plan for the next cycle to the execution teams. So I would say that's extremely important. So 2 is to have that IT information team being centralized with their own team of business analysts. That's essential. That's part of that central team, and then they're setting up the processes and the configuration requirements for those locations, and setting up those centralized planning offices in order to use the system properly.
I'm here with Dean and Aaron from the Third Stage Consulting team from EMEA and the APAC regions. We're talking about lessons from multinational digital transformations and ERP projects. We've got a lot more topics to cover here with them, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Could you whisper in my
I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown, Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me, or visit our website for more details.
Yes, I'll do anything you ever dreamed to be complete. Yes, of the nothing that
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And we're here with Aaron and Dean, and we're talking about how to manage multinational digital transformations and ERP implementations. What about you, Aaron? What are some of the most critical lessons you've learned from being involved with multinational digital transformation projects? Like, how would you summarize some of the lessons learned? Or
honestly, I think, where I've seen companies do exceptionally well has been the deliberate focus on communication. And by communication, that's not just one way, right? It's two-way. It's when there is enough knowledge passed down to the rest of the organization to let them know about what the project what's going on with the project, why it's happening. And then also making sure, like we talked about, right, you're taking the understanding of the different localities and how that impacts their work and how that impacts the project, and allowing that communication back to be acted on. I think, deliberate planning of communication can really make a big difference, and being very proactive and getting out there in front. And I think what I've seen as well, one of the, you always assume good communication is really going to help with change management. Where I was pleasantly surprised is it can also help you step up on the execution side of the project for the internal teams, and the communication between, the technical and the business teams, or the deployment team and the development team. Even right the way across the organization, communication just has such a large impact on the success of the project when you do it right.
Right. Yeah, makes total sense. Now, Gene, how have you found it to be most relevant to measure the success of a digital transformation project in a multinational setting, and how might that be different than how you'd measure digital transformation success for a localized or a domestic project? Or is it different?
Well, it's just a scale that's really different. I mean, the success is really, you have less people running around looking for information. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what the companies are looking for. Reducing all those non-value added activities to look for information, to cleanse information, to export information into Excels, and then cleanse that out and put it back in and set the plan out. So it's that's really the success factor. In multinational, it's about that planning and reporting piece. Those are the two requirements of why a global ERP is required. So planning needs to be done seamlessly, hopefully, within a centralized solution with all the data parameters, and planners can do their job and just to plan and to replan and to mitigate the risk, instead of looking for information and sending emails. I need this by this time. I need this by this time because I have to send my plan next week. And then the reporting, reports are generated properly. So all of that data flow that we're talking about earlier, that closed loop system of an end-to-end process of how data needs to flow, that needs to be, if that's reached, your company's going to get a lot of value out of their investment.
Yeah, makes sense. Anything you'd add to that, Aaron, as far as how to measure success on these multinational initiatives?
Yeah, I think typically being involved in the front end and on the strategy side, it's important to define what the KPIs are that you're going to measure success before you get to the end, right? So everybody understands those. So I don't think that is necessarily any difference. Where I have seen difference is in which KPIs you actually measure on the multinational side, right? So some of the things that we've already talked about in terms of the regulatory requirements at local countries or organizations, having KPIs not just at the national and international level, but ensuring that you are meeting the local requirements. So that's done. And then getting back to the change management, keeping track of local adoption of the system by country or by department or by organization, and having some very specific KPIs where there has been a big gap, a big jump between what the previous technology was and what the new technology is going to be, because those are some of your risk areas, right? Having a successful deployment doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a successful system for the next 5 years. You want to make sure that people continue to use that system, use it in the right way, grow that, provide feedback, and continually improve. And I think having KPIs around the adoption in the local areas gives you a good insight about how well that future process is going to be, so that you can take early action.
Yeah. Good advice there. It all comes back to the KPIs and having the right KPIs, of course. Here's a question from Darian on LinkedIn. Darian asks, how do you see the landscape of digital transformation evolving in the next 5 to 10 years for multinational companies? Why don't we start with you, Dean? That's a big question. There's a lot of directions you can go with that question, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you see the landscape of digital transformation changing in the next 5 to 10 years for multinationals?
I don't really see it changing. You just got to do things better than what that we've been doing in the past. Really, there's no
magic bullet.
There's no new magic bullet. There's no new methodology. In my view, we just got to set up the program fully and completely, and we need to list out all the moving parts and work and build out a project for each moving part. So I guess if we use technology to help manage the program, that would help, maybe, using a platform to help the management of the global rollout. That could be that could ease the overall management of all the stakeholders and all of that. So it's, there's no real magic bullet. You just got to lay everything out, and it needs to fit on the wall somewhere, and you have your checklist set up, and you're checking all the boxes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it is easy to get caught up in AI and agile and cloud, predictive analytics, whatever, cybersecurity, all these different trends. In 5 to 10 years, there's going to be new technology trends that we don't even know about yet. So it's easy to get caught up in all that and think, okay, well, that's going to totally change how we have to do multinational implementations. But I like how simple, like you kind of simplified it, said, well, just stop screwing up the way we've been doing projects in the past and do it better.
Stop relying on the technology to do the work for you. At the end of the day, it's you need to map it out. You need to understand every crux of the project and make sure you have a plan for it, and it's linked to other elements of the project. Once you do that and you set up your end-to-end processes and they're rolling properly, then another level or another I would say layer of technology you could add is sort of like a control tower, like a process mining tool kind of thing, to see how those processes are running, to understand the length that it takes to run these processes, the queue times and stuff like that, the documents queue in that process, to see if there's ways to improve the process. But that's later on. Don't jump into that right away if you don't set up the basics right in the first place.
Yeah, it's good advice. So I guess just to sort of wrap this all up and tie it all together, everything we've talked about, and I'll start with you, Aaron, as kind of a closing question here. What advice would you give to companies and project teams that are about to start a multinational digital transformation, or perhaps they're early in the journey? What sort of closing advice, if you're going to leave us with 2 or 3 things that are the most important to remember, what would that be?
I think from my point of view is spend the time up front to take a deliberate approach. Like, investing in the planning phase will never be money badly spent. And then I think carrying on from that really is make communication central to the program. And then thirdly, define what success looks like up front and make sure that everybody's aware of that, so everybody's marching towards the same goals.
Yeah. You have that common purpose, and we know why we're doing this project and what we're doing to support the goals of the company. Yeah. How about you, Dean? What would you add to that?
Yeah, well, implementing the technology is only at the final piece of the whole journey, really. I look at it as maybe the 80-20 rule. 80% is the whole preparation, right? It's everything, getting the whole organization aligned, having that digital strategy, setting up your data right, setting up your rollout plan, knowing what you need in terms of functional architecture and so forth. And then you do that change management and setting up your requirements. At the end, the implementation should roll smoothly if you've taken everything into account, and that's 80%. So if you think an implementation, your implementation rollout is going to take 1 year, maybe you need to spend 3 years to prepare, not 6 months. And give an analogy, it's like It's like you're training for a marathon. And if your goal is to run a sub-3 marathon, imagine all the work and the training and the fitness that's required to run that sub-3 marathon. That sub-3 marathon is only 3 hours, but imagine the hundreds of hours of training to get to that level to give you a chance to run under that time. And it's the same thing. The more time you put, the more fitness, the more training you put in the beginning, you're going to enjoy the process of running that marathon, and you're going to enjoy your result at the end of the day.
Yeah. Instead of thinking that if I just start the marathon now, instead of training, I'll finish it faster because I'm starting it now. And I think that's what a lot of organizations do is they think, well, why bother with the training? Let's just start it now and then we'll get done sooner. Well, no, because you're probably going to keel over and die because you're not in condition to run a marathon. So you need to make sure you.
But we're talking about digital transformation. It's not just completing a marathon. It has to be done proper. Like you want to hit a certain target, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good deal. Well, this is good stuff. Thanks for your guys' insights here and your time, and thank you to the audience for the great questions here. Again, if you're interested in our Digital Stratosphere Conference, right above me here on the video is a QR code you can scan. You can learn more about the event. Again, you can join us in person in the first week of October. You can join us in person in Denver, Colorado in the U.S., or if you're international, not able to make it to Denver, you can also join remotely and get access to all the recordings as well if you're not able to join it live. And so you can sign up for a virtual pass as well. So check out that QR code if you want to just bookmark the link and look at the agenda and whatnot. You can scan that QR code in front of you. All right. Thank you, Aaron and Dean. Great conversation and a lot of good stuff we talked about there related to multinational implementations and transformations. We've got a lot more to cover. We're going to debrief on some of what we just discussed here in just a moment. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Just tell me what you've got to say to me. I've been waiting for so long to hear.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting and your host of Transformation Ground Control. I want to encourage you to read our Guide to Organizational Change Management. It's a free report or free guide that we published. It's one that I actually wrote that talks about best practices and lessons learned as it relates to change management. So as you know, on this podcast, we cover a lot of stuff related to the human sides of change, organizational change management, including training, communications, org design, all kinds of stuff as it relates to change management. So if you're trying to learn more about change management or you're looking for more direction and ideas on how to get started on your change management strategy and your overall journey, be sure to check out this guide. You can read it by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you or in the links below for this particular podcast episode. You can find a link to take you to the page that will allow you to register to go ahead and download that and read it for free. So be sure to check it out. It's the Guide to Organizational Change Management, written by yours truly. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 181. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of the show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting. So, Darian, we just had Dean and Aaron on the show. We talked about multinational implementation, some of the nuances there. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, I thought it was really good to have him on. I think this is a topic that we haven't talked about a whole lot on the podcast lately, at least. So it was really interesting to hear the different perspectives from even the cultural norms in other countries that consultants and digital transformations, everything needs to be made aware of. Like, for example, when they said the normal workday in some other countries can be Sunday through Thursday instead of Monday through Friday. So I think just being aware of all those different things, and they obviously have a lot of knowledge about that. So that was something really interesting that I enjoyed learning about during that interview. I know I asked a question towards the end there about what they see for the landscape of digital transformation and how it's going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years. Eric, what do you think about that? How do you see that transforming in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I actually love the way Dean answered that question, because he sort of brought it back down to earth a little bit, as far as like, yeah, okay, technology is going to change. There's a bunch of new stuff that we can't really predict that's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. But, he had a real simple way of just saying, let's just do better than we've done in the past. If you can do that in the next 5 to 10 years, you're in great shape. It doesn't matter what happens with technology and what trends do or don't take hold in the next 5 to 10 years. If you're just doing better and you're doing things the right way, then that other stuff will fall into place. So, not to give this answer as a cop out, but I'll say what Dean said. That's my answer too. I like that answer a lot. So.
Yeah, only if Dean was here to hear that too.
Yeah, exactly. We should have kept him on the show so we could hear that, but I'm sure he'll hear it after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. Also, what advice would you give to any companies embarking on a digital transformation across multiple countries?
Well, I think, just kind of summarizing a lot of the threads we talked about in the conversation. I mean, there's communication, there's the upfront planning, making sure you've got a deliberate strategy and plan for how you're going to go through this transformation. Are you going to standardize? Are you going to localize? Are you going to do both? How are you going to involve people? What's the phasing? I mean, all that stuff, you've got to have a really clear plan. And like Aaron and Dean said, it takes time to create that plan. You've got to take that time up front to get it all figured out. And the more time, you spend up front in that planning phase, the faster the overall implementation is going to go. It's kind of like we were talking about the marathon analogy. You could start the marathon tomorrow and presumably, or in theory, you might finish the race sooner, but you're more likely not ever going to finish the race because you're out of shape. You didn't plan for it. You didn't eat right. You didn't sleep right. You didn't train right, all that stuff. And you're probably not going to finish the race, even though on paper, it looks like I might finish the race sooner if I just start it tomorrow rather than worrying about all this training and stuff I have to do. So that's, that was a way to look at it. And then the other comment I really liked was when Aaron talked about how, that I forgot his exact words, but he said something along the lines of time invested in planning is always time well spent. I mean, I think that's the gist of what he was saying. So I think that's another key thing too, is just make sure you've got a solid plan up front.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And one more question I have for you particularly is, can you share an example of an implementation or a successful digital transformation that you have been a part of that was multinational?
Yeah, I mean, I can, although I will say, it's more interesting and there's more lessons from the ones that I've been involved with that were not that successful. So I mean, one, maybe I'll flip it a bit and answer that instead. But, one that didn't work that was challenging was a multinational consumer goods company that manufactured its own brand and also had its own branded stores throughout the world. And they had operations like in 20 or more different countries. And it was actually my first really big, complex global project as a consultant too, which is why it also stands out. Not only was it a challenging project, but it was the first big multinational project I've been involved with. But a lot of what they did is they implemented SAP, and they wanted a common operating model. They wanted a standard one way of operating or one way of using SAP. And they were upgrading from an old mainframe system to SAP. And it was just, a lot easier said than done. Obviously, putting in a common complex core ERP system has its benefits and its potential upside, but it also has a lot of risk that goes along with that. So it was a very tenured organization, a lot of unionized, highly tenured people that were working at the company that really didn't want to change. And the change management was really difficult. And, and there's a lot of the project, I'd say as a whole, made a lot of the same mistakes that Aaron and Dean mentioned that you don't want to do, which is they didn't take into account some of the local cultural nuances, the way things were operating today. It was like, let's just skip ahead and just focus on the future state, not worried about how things are today, because it doesn't matter because that's all going to change. So let's focus on the future. And that tends to backfire, especially in multinational situations. It was perceived as a U.S. driven project. So that was a problem from the start. So you had a lot of European countries and even some of the Asian locations that were pushing back because it was an American thing, and the Americans didn't understand how things worked in Europe and other parts of the world. There's also the political dynamics of in this business, Europe was actually higher growth and it was more profitable than the Americas. So you had the Americas where the company was based that was sort of pushing the project globally. But then you had the center of power, the center of influence, and the center of the money was actually in Europe. So you sort of had this conflict between parent company or headquarters in America trying to, decide for the rest of the world the way things were going to work. And then you had Europe, they're saying, hey, we're the ones that are, we're the cash cow here. We're the ones that are driving all the growth in the company. So we're going to do things our way. So it created this sort of political struggle that the team didn't really take the time up front to work through that. It sort of manifested itself and came out during the implementation itself. So those are just some of the lessons from a difficult implementation. It ended up being successful, but it was pretty difficult along the way.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot you can learn from those kinds of situations, whether they're successful or unsuccessful or maybe more challenging. There's definitely a lot of lessons that you probably can take away from those particular situations.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue with this thread then. Let's go ahead and we're going to play you a clip of Aaron talking about his background and what his goals and objectives are and what he's seeing in the EMEA region within Third Stage Consulting. So we're going to play you this clip. We actually just released it recently on our YouTube channel, on the Third Stage Consulting YouTube channel, as a way to introduce Aaron and to our audience, and also to help people understand what it is we're doing with our clients and our team in the EMEA region and other parts of the world. So with that, we're going to play this clip of Aaron introducing himself and talking about Third Stage Consulting EMEA.
A little bit about my background. I've had a history in helping customers with their digital transformations around the world over the last 20, 25 years. Lots of experience in a variety of different company types, from startups to public entities. And most recently, I was the president of a private equity-backed firm that grew from a North American base of around 30 staff when I joined, ultimately to 350 people in worldwide operations. So a lot of relevant experience that I hope can bring a little bit of excitement to the Third Stage community. There's two things that really drew me to Third Stage. I think the first one is really getting involved with customers and allowing to help them in a technology agnostic way, being able to concentrate on the best interests of the actual customer without any external influences. And then the second thing was I was lucky enough around 20 years ago to work with Eric Kimberling, the CEO, and the opportunity to work with him again was very enticing. We did a lot of work together. Some of our projects were actually worldwide. We worked together in South Africa on a big project for ESCOM, and I was really excited to get the opportunity to work with him. My role at Third Stage is the Executive Vice President of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And what that means is I'm really responsible for customer success, the operations, and the growth of everything that happens in that region. I think my specific experience, in the first instance, if you can tell from my accent, I'm definitely not from Texas. I was actually born in the UK in a city called Newcastle and spent a number of years working there. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of international projects, both directly in countries or for international organizations, and being able to bring some experience that I've garnered throughout that time is obviously going to bring some value. And then also, personally, I've worked at a number of different companies at various different stages of their growth. So the stage that Third Stage currently is in, with significant growth in the US and looking to expand its operations around the world, is a perfect fit for some of the experiences I've had in the past. And I'm really excited to be on board and continue that with Third Stage Consulting. Two things. Really, we've got a solid foundation already as a company, and the ability to be able to help clients in a number of different ways. So that gives me a lot of optimism and excitement. The other thing is really some of the existing customers at Third Stage have a lot of international operations. So being able to help those and not be limited by the geographic boundaries that we might have as a company, but be able to match the needs of our customers who have international operations and provide dedicated support in the countries that they require, is definitely one of the things I'm looking forward to supporting. The main goals and objectives of our expansion into EMEA is really focused on providing exceptional customer service around the world. We have a solid base in the US, and we've done a lot of work in Europe and the Middle East and Africa already. And what we want is to really build on that and grow with our customers And so make sure that we have the right people in the right place at the right time to support our customer projects and their digital transformations. I think the first steps that we plan to take in the expansion process is really two-phased. So in the first phase, we're really engaging with our existing customers that we're supporting in the international regions, along with our existing team, and really taking a good hard look at what is working, what maybe could be improved on, and ensuring that we're providing the right level of service for our customers. I think that'll lead to a number of both short and long-term initiatives that will drive the work that we do in the next 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months. And I'm looking forward to getting that feedback and being able to build on it. I think there's lots of trends and opportunities that not only are specific to our EMEA region, but are happening around the world. So there's obviously a large prevalence in AI and future technology and how that can be implemented. I think one of the key things is helping our customers to be able to basically trawl through what is hype, what is real, how can they best implement that technology for the benefit of their actual business. And I think that's really going to be a key thing. I think the other thing is really around digital transformation is not easy. There are no easy projects that have happened when you're doing large-scale programs within client operations. And so one of the big things is to be able to bring a lot of worldwide experience to bear with our individual customers in whichever market they're in, and to be able to take advantage of those and provide the support right the way through the initial strategy or planning stage and then through implementation to give our customers the best chance possible of being on time and on budget with their large programs. My vision for third stage in EMEA over the next 5 years, really, I see no reason why that business unit can't be the largest business unit that third stage has. Now, whether Eric agrees with me or not, that's probably a question to debate. But that's really my goal is to take advantage of the opportunity we have, really build a solid base with good customer relationships and help our customers get to where they need to go. That's really the key. Exceptional customer service and building a reputation where customers feel like they can come to us and we will provide value every time we engage with them. One of the key things here is to be able to provide feedback from around the world into best practices and strategy that we do for all of our customers. So that means both taking on board input from the US and APAC regions as well, but then also providing what we're seeing in our markets back into the rest of the organization to ensure that we truly are providing worldwide influenced best of practice implementation strategy and consulting services to our customers. I think that's really key. I think the other thing is to continue our growth trajectory alongside our customers. So as we've seen over the last few years, we have a large number of customers now who have international operations and are looking for support in some of the worldwide programs that they're implementing. This will be able to provide them with the necessary support from third stage consulting to be able to continue to help them as they move forward. You know, I think it's not necessarily just the experiences that I've had in the past in Europe. I think I've been lucky enough to be involved in a lot of worldwide projects, as I mentioned earlier, working with Eric down in South Africa on a project for ESCOM, which was kind of a countrywide initiative that they were doing at the time. And I think bringing the ability to take into account the various different cultural aspects of a project, because all of those things are different from country to country, but then being able to pick and choose the things that worked in different regions to be able to come up with kind of a worldwide process that takes advantage of those, but then is tailored for the specific local market that we're working in. I really think that's going to be key to us moving forward successfully. There's probably a few, but let me start with a nice easy one. So a fun fact about myself, I'm actually a fully qualified high-performance driving instructor for the local BMW club here in Colorado. So if you ever feel like you need some time on the track, I'm one of those people who are crazy enough to sit in the passenger seat with you and kind of make sure that you turn the right way as we go around corners at 100 miles an hour. To have is I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone and working together. I think we've got a lot of exciting growth goals that can help all of our customers as they progress and grow together. And I'm just really excited to get started and looking forward to hearing from everybody. So if people want to get in touch and follow along with our progress, feel free to get in touch directly. You can either call or text me. I'm available for conversations as needed. You can also follow along on our social channels and be able to keep track of that. We should have some exciting posts as we travel around the world and meet some of our customers and expand on the operations that we currently have in EMEA. Really appreciate all the time and the attention. This week has been fantastic. It's still my first week, if I can believe that. Definitely drinking from the fire hose, but both the interactions I've had with the staff here at Third Stage Consulting, as well as the customers that I've been able to call and meet with already, has been exceptional. And I'm really excited and looking forward to carrying on this journey together. So thank you.
So that was a clip of Aaron Patterson from our team talking about Third Stage EMEA and some of our growth plans there. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways from that video, Darian?
Yeah, I think overall being able to earlier today hear Aaron's perspective on multinational digital transformations and then kind of go into what his role is within Third Stage and what his perspective will be on the growth in the EMEA region for Third Stage, I think was super interesting and cool to hear. Eric, can you share your thoughts behind expanding further into the EMEA region and why Third Stage is pushing that?
Yeah, well, I think the main reason why we're pushing is opportunistic. I mean, it's so much demand and so many inquiries coming from the region that we decided that having a physical presence or more of a physical presence in the region was going to be more effective. And we've always, for 3 years now or 4 years now, we've been doing work in the region. But it's been a pretty small team, and it's been, quite honestly, it's been somewhat secondary to the U.S. market or the Americas market where we're based. And so we decided to do it. Most of the growth we see coming as a company is probably going to be outside the U.S. So let's really double down and focus on that international growth and take advantage of the fact that we are getting so many inquiries and so many companies that want to work with us that are either based in Europe and or they've got operations in Europe. They might be a U.S.-based company with operations in Europe, and they want a company that can have a global presence and a global team that's integrated that can help them through that. So that's really what we're trying to do, is build that international footprint out to where organizations don't necessarily have to go hire a big, massive consulting organization to get a global footprint to support a global project. So that's really the intent behind it.
Right. Yeah, you guys can focus more on some multinational projects like we were talking about earlier too, especially with Dean also being in the APAC region. It can kind of be a collaboration between all three different regions.
Yeah, for sure.
So for the EMEA region specifically, what right now are some of the main focuses or things that you guys are focusing on in that area?
Yeah, so I mean, right now it's a lot of business development and focusing on all the inquiries we've received in recent months and even longer, making sure that we're having these conversations with them. We're trying to do as much as we can in person in Europe. So I'm spending time in Europe with Aaron and with the team in Europe to really get to know some of the clients there and to get to know the team there better. So really, that's really the focus right now, is sort of developing the business, but also integrating the team more, to where it's really anyone who works with us in EMEA, it has the same look and feel as Third Stage. It is Third Stage. Obviously, it's localized. Back to the conversation of how much do you localize versus having one way of operating. We have some common ways of operating, but we also know we need to localize, which is part of why we brought Aaron on the team and why Dean's on the team as well, to help us localize our offering to APAC in the case of Dean, and then Aaron's helping us do the same with EMEA. So that's a big part of what we're working on now.
Yeah, definitely. It's all super exciting stuff, especially for Third Stage. And I'm excited to see how it develops in the next few months with Aaron being on the team full time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are interested in getting to know Aaron and Dean and myself and other people from the Third Stage team and other experts in the space that are not even affiliated with Third Stage Consulting, you can attend our Stratosphere conference that I was mentioning during the interview. If you go to stratosphere2024.com, you can see the agenda. You can buy tickets, either in-person tickets or virtual tickets if you want to join remotely. go to stratosphere2024.com. You can learn more about it, and you can register there as well. So you can meet us all there, and hope to see you there. And in the meantime, we'll look forward to another episode next week. Every Wednesday, new episodes of Transformation Ground Control. Just go to transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting. And if you're looking for help with your digital transformation, please reach out. You can reach out to myself directly, or you can go to thirdstage-consulting.com and learn more about us there. So I hope you all have a great week. Thank you for a great show, Darian. Thank you to our guests for being here, and thank you to the audience for great questions along the way. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Transformation Ground Control.